Hello, everybody. This is going to be a recording on how to import grades from USA Test Prep and put them into our D2L gradebook. Okay, so this video will involve the Vlookup process or Vlookup function in Excel, and it should go with the QRG called the USA Test Prep grade importing. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to be able to pull our student list from TVA. So for those of you that don't know what TVA is, when you're here in TV or Total View School, you want to go over here to Quick Links and then go to Total View Action or TV Action. So from here, I'm going to search for all of my students, and I don't want to search for specific ones. I just want a list of all of my students. So I'm going to leave all this the way that it is and hit search. It should bring up all of your students. Ignore my number here. I'm just on several classes. But from here, we want to export this list, export all data as CSV. So click those three lines and then export all data as CSV. Okay, so we're going to use that in just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and open it. Okay, so I'm going to leave that, but I'm just going to minimize it because now I need to go grab the next step. So the next step is to go to my D2L, and I'm going to hit export over here at the gradebook. So I've gone to grades, and then I'm going to hit export. So here from this export menu, all I need is the org defined ID. I don't want their last name, first name, any of that. I just want their org defined ID. And I want to select the grade items that I'm going to be importing, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to use this export here to grab our column headings. So I selected all of my all-in grade items, and then I'm going to hit export to CSV. And then I'm going to hit download. Okay, so I'm going to open it up, and I'm just going to minimize it for later. So now we have two of our files ready to go. And so now I need to go to USA Test Prep over here to grab my gradebook there. So here's my classes, and I'm just going to do the gradebook. Now, if you want to do one specific assignment, you absolutely can. You would go to assignments and you could grab the data there. But I like to just do my full gradebook, so that way as I'm doing one grade item, I can do all of them at one time. So I'm going to hit my gradebook, and I want to export all of this information. Okay. So from here, we just want to hit Enable Editing. And we need to delete the first row. And before I do any converting of the student IDs to org IDs, I'm going to replace or change out all of my grades. So you can do this by filtering and changing, but a quick way to do it is to highlight all of your grades. Okay, once I have them all selected, I'm going to come up here to find and select and then hit replace. Now, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the grades that are 100 and give those 5 points. All the grades that are at 90, give them 4.5 and so forth, or whatever your point, whatever your points are worth, or whatever your all-ins are worth for your class, you'll need to convert those. I will say that one of my assignments has 10 questions, okay? So a student could receive a 10, or a student could get them all correct and they could receive 100. If this happens, start with the largest number first. So start with 100 and convert that to a 5, okay? Because we don't want to do the 10 first, because what that'll do is it'll convert the 10, which is part of that 100, and it messes things up. So start with the highest, which is 100. So we want to say find all or find everything that's 100 and replace it with a 5. And we want to do replace. There we go. Great. So for me, my 90, and then it'd be 4.5. 80 goes to 4. Replace all. Keep doing that until you get all of your grades. Okay. I will do this so you don't have to watch all this. I'll pause the recording. Okay, so I have all of my USA Test Prep grades converted to the points that will be going into the gradebook. Notice that one student did receive a 0, so I'm just going to leave that 0 in there. But for all the students that did not, or that have not completed it, I don't want to put my zeros in here. I want to do the zeros in the gradebook, okay? In the actual, in D2L, that's where I want to put in the zeros. Now, for those of you that have USA Test Prep items that are considered to be participation grades, so like our late cohort students, the best practice there is for you to duplicate your USA Test Prep assignment and assign that one. So that way it's a separate grade item, or to have another class, so that way it's not the same grade items. But if you didn't do that, just be mindful that when you do this import right here, this is their real score, and that's what's going to be imported into the gradebook, okay? So even if you've already gone into the gradebook and you put in a 5 out of 5, when you do this import process, it's going to replace that participation grade that you put in there. So a couple of options there. You can remove the students ahead of time right here, or you can go ahead and do the import and then go change those grades. Okay, so the next step is for us to insert a column between C and D. So we just want to highlight here, right click, and hit insert. Now, this is where your D2L export is going to come into use, because this column here is going to be what our org IDs, okay? So that's the D2L IDs. So if you will open up that gradebook export, I believe it was this one, okay. Here is my org ID column. So notice here, org defined ID, and I want to copy that. So copy, come back to my USA Test Prep. Sorry guys, I have too many of these open. Oh, right here. And paste that at the top. Now, you have to be careful and have the capitalization the exact same way, okay? And also, you can't have a space before the O here, and you can't have a space after the D. I know that this is a lot of steps right now, but once you get your master import file, you'll be able to copy and paste those headings really easily. Okay, now we're ready to start the VLOOKUP. Okay, so right here, this top cell, okay, that's where we're going to put our very first VLOOKUP function. And if you hit this F of X, so we want to insert a function. VLOOKUP is one of the first ones for me because I use it frequently. But if VLOOKUP is not there, then you just come up here to this and you type VLOOKUP. Oh, there we go, VLOOKUP, and hit go, and then VLOOKUP will pop up there. So I'm going to hit OK. That's what I want to use. Now, I want to explain what each one of these fields means, okay? So the lookup value, it's saying, what am I using? What do you want me to go search for? Okay, what do you want me to go search for? Well, I want VLOOKUP to go look for a student ID. Okay, so that student ID right there, that goes into lookup value. So I can just click on that cell and it populates right there in the field. Table array, that's the VLOOKUP's asking me, okay, where do you want me to go look for this? That's where our TVA export came in. Remember where it had all of our students on there? When you get the file from TVA, it has their student IDs and their org IDs. So we're using that as our reference. So I'm going to open up my TVA file, and that's this guy here. So I'm telling it, I want you to I want you to look through all of this data here, and I'm just going to highlight there. So really easy. I didn't even have to save this file from TVA. I just downloaded it and then I clicked into it, okay? And if you click this top square where the column and the headings, where the columns and the rows meet, it'll highlight everything. Okay, so right here where it says column index numerator, that's saying, okay, once I find your student ID, what do you want me to produce for you? Well, if you come back over here to your student or to your TVA, student ID is in the first column. Once it finds that student ID, what do I want it to produce? I want it to produce this identity ID. That's the org ID. And that is the fourth column over. So I'm just going to enter a number 4. Now, be mindful though that the lookup value, which for us was student ID, it has to be the first column in your table that you're looking through. Okay. The last field says, can it be approximate? Like, can I round? Well, no, I don't want you to say, oh, well, that's kind of close. I want it to be exact. So since I want it to be exact, I'm just going to put a false. And I hit OK. And there we go. So it looked in my TVA export for the student ID, and it gave me the org ID that matched that student. I'm going to take this function and drag down for all of my students, and all of my org IDs populated. Now, if you notice when you click on one of these cells, it's the full function. So what we want to do is we want to highlight that column and just do Control C, or we want to copy it, okay? Because what we want to do is we now want to paste it, the values that we see right here. So we want to take away that function. So I right click and see, notice my paste options. I want to do the second one. So paste the values. So now they're just numbers. Okay. So it took that function away, because previously, if we had done it where we left the function there, the function would always rely on the student ID column. And we want to be able to delete that student ID column. So now we don't need the first, last name, or the student ID column. So we're just going to delete those. Okay, so now we've changed our grades. We have converted from student ID to org ID. And now we're just going to do the last little bit of things to be able to import our gradebook. Okay, so what we need to do now is we need to edit these column headings. They have to be specific so that way the import knows exactly where these grade items go. So we're going to use our D2L export. So remember when we pulled our our gradebook? So right here for my all-in G.4a, which was 8.25. Now, all of this is the column heading. Okay, I want to clarify something right now. Real quick though, okay? All you really need to have is this part right here through the points grade. But if you have done this in the past, you know that points grade has to be on there, okay? But to make it easier, you can just copy all of this and put it on your USA test port, or USA test prep. So that goes right here. So I'm just going to paste that in. Okay. I'm going to do it for the next one, which is my 8:30. And the last one, which was for 9:10. Okay. The very last thing here is the last column, okay? And that we're going to refer back to our gradebook export. We want to take this end of line indicator. Now, if you type this on your own, you have to make sure that you capitalize things where they go. The dash here has to be the exact same. There has to be a space here. There can't be space after the R. It's very particular. So it's easier if you just copy that cell and bring it back over here to your USA Test Prep and paste it in. And then you need to do the pound sign or hashtag and bring it down. Okay, so everything should be ready to go. I just need to save my file here. And when you go to do an import, you have to save it as a CSV. So pick your location where you want it to be. For me, I have a running list of my USA Test Prep files, okay? So this will be USA Test Prep import for 914. And the save as type, it has to be a CSV, comma, delimited file. And I hit save. Okay, so let's go see how this works. So I'm going to go back to my gradebook. And I'm going to hit import. If you needed help with the heading, the column headings, you can look at a sample here and it shows you how the column headings have to be. Okay, but I'm going to choose my file. Open, and I'm ready to continue. Notice here it said unrecognized users. So what that is that there is someone that's in my USA Test Prep class that has been removed from my actual D2L class. That's okay. You can still import it. And I'm glad it brought this up because I will, one trick that I've done in the past is if I had honors and regular kids and like, or two courses, what I would do is I would have them in the same USA Test Prep class. And so I would prepare one USA Test Prep import file and use it for both of my D2L classes. It'll just say, hey, I don't recognize these 50 students. And I'm like, that's fine. I don't care. They're in my other class. So you can just hit continue. And it should show you the grades that are changing. So notice that this person did not have a grade before and it's importing it as a 4. And then you hit import. And like I said, for the grade book from USA Test Prep, when we're on week 10, this will update all of those grade items from the full semester, okay? So as you're not going to have to do this 10 different times each week, you can do that one big file to import in. Okay, be sure to use that QRG, but also check out the other resources that are on there and the common mistakes if you received any errors.